Hello, welcome, Marlene here. Today I'm revisiting some of my past videos, my favorites for Easter that have little to no icing. This compilation is a bit different. I'm just leaving the tutorial as is. It's not sped up. You'll get the step-by-step instruction. I find that some of my best tutorials get lost with all the uploads, and so I thought you guys would really enjoy these. So let's go. It is by Silco Mart, and let's open it up. What do we have in here? This is an Easter kind of themed kit. You can see here 2 eggs, 2 little chicks, and 2 flowers. This is the cookie cutter, I would presume. Doesn't look like it makes a very thick cookie. And yeah, let's test this out. Alright, so I've used the thicker of the rolling guides for the Dough Easy mat, and the dough is still slightly too thick, so I'm just rolling it a bit more. Alright, so I've got just a little bit of flour so it doesn't stick to this cutter. A press. There we go. All right, not too bad. I'm just going to add a smidgen more flour. There. Here are the cookies. They've had time to cool, and now I'll be able to add the chocolate to the back. And so we're going to set these aside. I'm using a tipless piping bag. I'm adding that to a glass here so that I can easily fill the bag. There we go. I'm using dark chocolate since that's my favorite, but you could use whatever chocolate you want to use. I'm sure it would be good with white chocolate or milk chocolate. They had a very interesting recipe on the package for a pistachio cookie with a white chocolate, so I think that would be interesting. And now I always knot up my bag here so that chocolate doesn't, or whatever I'm using, doesn't come out this end. And now here is the actual mold we're using. I'm just going to trim off the tip of my piping bag, and I'm just working on the outer perimeter of my chocolate here, getting it into the crevice. When I did my test, I did get air bubbles in this area. So we're just going to make sure we've got that nice and filled. And now I'm just going to pick up the mat and tap any potential air bubbles out. Now I'm using my bench scraper just to pull in the chocolate that's overflowed, and this will give me an indication of where I need to refill. Okay, a little bit here. Here, here, and here. Add a bit to these, and let's tap this out. I found my offset spatula. I'm terrible at misplacing my things. There we go. That'll do the job. We can put them in the fridge. I just popped an air bubble there. So I found that it takes no time for the chocolate to set up. The thing is so thin. And now I'm just stretching the mold to release my shapes. There we go. I'm flipping them over, and I'm just gently pressing in the center If they're not releasing, I'm just pressing a bit in the center and they're coming out. I did have one snap earlier. That was probably because I didn't add enough chocolate. Try not to actually touch them with your hand to not get fingerprints on them. Now let's say one isn't nice, you just throw it back in the melting pot and start again, okay? Now here they are, they look great. Here I have like a little bit of chocolate. I'm just going to trim that off with a knife. Here is the cookie, and these little holes there are to kind of help the chocolate secure everything to the cookie. So the chocolate's going to squish down into those holes and secure the chocolate disc to the cookie. And there we have our pretty little... Well, there's an interesting phenomenon. So the heat from my base chocolate has actually melted my disc. So that's interesting. Take note of that. I'm leaving this in the video. You see there? That is the chocolate that's melted. That is very interesting. Okay, so let's see what we can do about that. All right, take two. Here you can see the chocolate actually melted my disc. It's not ruined, but it's not nice. So now I'm just adding a swirl of chocolate to my cookie. I'm just going to wait a second before adding my disc. And now let's see if we're going to be able to avoid that melting issue. Yeah, I think I'm good. It's just to lower the temperature of that chocolate before you add your disc. Let's just look at the finished cookies here. So this one here is perfect. This is my best one for sure. This one here, you can see it's a little bit messed up because I actually touched the surface. And this one here is messed up because of the base chocolate that I used to secure the disc actually melted the disc. So I just want to show you some of the little hiccups that you could encounter to try to, you know, make your experience a little bit more flawless. And now for this crackle technique. This is from 2016 and it was the hit of that year. I hope you enjoy it. I've rolled my chocolate cookie dough with the thinnest guides from the Dough Easy rolling mat, and now I'm using a piece of saran wrap to cut my bunny heads. I want them to have a nice kind of domed shape. I don't want them to be flat. So I'm just going to do a few of those. Now because it's thin, they'll be more fragile than normal, so I'm just going to pick up the whole parchment paper instead of trying to pick them off. I'm just going to warp them if I do that. The saran wrap actually ripped from being used, so I'm just taking another piece there, and we're just going to get through the whole bunch of them. There we go. And now, if you want, you can take off the outside dough if you want to reuse that. But the rest is going in the freezer so that we can handle them without them getting messed up. If you can tell, but they're really much more kind of round and nice because of this process. All right, into the freezer. Here is the chocolate cookie dough rolled once again, but this time with the thicker guide. And now we're going to be cutting some of the eggs. I think I'm going to repeat with the saran wrap just to get a nice edge. Since we're not doing decorated with icing, we're just... Okay, so there we go. And this really makes a nicer kind of beveled edge on the side of the cookie. I'm going to take the Easter egg that's a bit smaller, just to create some guidelines, and I'm just gently pushing that in to give myself a guideline. And that's all. I'm not pressing hard. Alright, here's my magic concoction. It looks like an absolute mess, but I have to say it surprised me how well it works. So what do we have here? An egg white, a little splash of water, and some white Wilton food gel. Theirs is by far the most white that I've ever kind of worked with, but this is the most white product. And now I've whipped all that together, and now I'm going to move my cookies into frame. Here are my chocolate cookies on a piece of parchment paper. As funny as it could seem, the white is quite strong, a little bit like black, but not. It does stain and tend to leave a residue, so work on parchment paper. And now I have a silicone paintbrush. I think this is an important part of the process because of how these little kind of pieces of silicone stay separate. They're not like a paintbrush where the pieces kind of meld together. And now I'm just simply dipping this into my egg wash, my white egg wash, and I'm just brushing that onto the surface of my cookies. Now, it's important to go in the same direction. If you're going all which ways, it's going to look messy. So I'm going kind of like that, and repeat on all the eggs here. Try to get along the side. So these are raw cookies. There we go. This one here, maybe I'll add a bit more on this one. Okay, so now I've got egg on my cookie. So the perfect thing to glue another cookie on top. I'm going to grab an offset spatula, and I'm picking up one of my bunny heads that I created before, like so, and I'm just going to drop that on the surface of my egg wash, just like that. Try to make sure you don't get any of the white on this new cookie that you're adding. You want this to be nice, deep brown. The under has got the wash, and the top has to be nice and deep in color. There you go. I found that since they're so frozen, you can handle them. Last one here. There. Now we're going to pop these in the freezer just so that the base cookie can chill. Alright, for the sake of this experiment, we're going to do the reverse. This time we're going to do an egg wash on the little bunnies. We're going to place them on the egg. I'm going to pop them in the freezer because they're still very soft. These cookies have been in the freezer for a little bit just so that I can handle the bunny. I don't want to get any of the egg wash on, you see? You see that? That's what I didn't want. Let's wipe off the cookie if we can. Best we can there. Alright. I'm going to put it on a paper towel to see if there's any residue. Alright, let's do that again. There. Pick up this one. I'm going to drop it on a paper towel before, wipe my palette knife, pick it up again, and then position onto the cookie. You try, this one here has a ton of egg wash on the back, this third one. So I'm just going to gently place that. And let's see how this bakes. Here are my Crackle cookies baked. They all come out a little bit different. Some of the dark lines are a result of the brush strokes, and some are actual cracking. I really like how they turned out. Here are the cookies we're working on. I really love the simplicity of these and how the children can be involved and participate in the decorating. So I'm working in a bead tray. I've got my cookie in the bead tray here, and I've got some brown icing, only one color. And I guess you could do this with melted chocolate if you wanted. I don't work with melted chocolate often, but I would presume the sprinkles would stick. They did stick when I was making my cake pops. And so now I'm just creating a twig wreath. And you want the lines to kind of cross over, look like they're all kind of intertwined. There we go. And now I'm just lightly sprinkling the colored nonpareil onto these twigs. We want them to stick, but we don't want them to coat completely. You want to be able to see the twigs. They're part of the decor. And now I'm taking a few of my little bunnies and pressing that into the wet icing. And then the little carrots, they really add a little cuteness, and the color is great. It's a bit of a different pop of color. There we go. And there are the completed Easter cookies. Let's shake off the rest of our little... There. So if you want, you can add eyes and all that, but I don't find that it's necessary. This is, you know, rustic we're going for. Here is take 2 of our bunny cookies. This here, I didn't think it would look nice with a brown wreath, and so I'm working in green icing. And it's exactly the same thing though. I'm just doing kind of like twig look around. You don't want the lines to pile up. You want them kind of like that, random branchy looking. This is a really great project because there's, you know, no need for it to look perfect. Now once that's done, we sprinkle these wet lines with the little pastel colored nonpareils. And we don't want to coat these lines, we just want a few accents. Remove the excess. And now I have my flowers here, and I'm just dropping them onto my wet wreath. And if you want, right here where his little paw is, you can add a dab of icing and get a little carrot and place that right there. Now to finish this off, I'm just adding a few little leaves, and it's just tear shapes that I'm pulling around the flowers. You can rotate your cookie to position them. I picked this up at my local craft store. Here I'm trying to get the reflection off of it. And they are clay sculpting tools. Let's open them up here. I'm not really going to be doing too much with the wooden parts, but this is what I want here, these steel ones. I'm going to rinse them off and we'll get started. I've colored my dough in pink, purple, and teal, and now I'm just going to create some striping in it by going like so. Cutting, and then I'm just like so, like that, and now I could kind of press it down. I'm going to roll it a bit, it's not narrow enough. Break it again. That looks about good. It's not really a very scientific approach. Now I'm rolling this out. I'm going to do the thickness of my guides. And there are my marbled dough. Doesn't that look pretty? And now I'm just going to cut my eggs. You can do it wherever you like. Some spots are obviously prettier than others. And don't forget, the other side is another mystery. It could be very pretty on the other side. Sometimes one side isn't great and the other side is really good. All right, so that's it. I'm going to lift off my extra dough. I'm going to show you what I mean by this one on the other side. You see? It's completely different. And now I'm just removing my excess. And I'm going to be popping these in the freezer. Now my extra dough, try not to knead it too much. Just kind of reassemble it, because if you overwork it, then the colors will be all kind of muddled. We still want to be able to reuse this. You see, if I don't knead it too much, it's still good. It still has another good batch of cookies in it. Well, there's my second roll, still good. Every time you re-roll though, your colors get more muddled. So try to maximize what you're getting in here. Here's my marbled cookie. This is the front of the dough, but I flip it over and it's much prettier, I find anyway, on this side. So I'm going to actually work with this side. And now I'm brushing on some of my egg wash. This is white food gel in an egg white. I removed the yellows just because obviously would kind of muck up my color. And so just a light coating of the egg wash onto the surface of the cookie. I found it's kind of easier to work with a dough that isn't too chilled. If it's too hard, it's harder to carve into the cookie, and so try not to have a cookie that's too firm. Now I'm using my sculpting tool, and I'm just my finger here just so that the cookie doesn't move too much, but it's tricky so that the cookie doesn't warp as well as you're pulling it towards you. And try not to go too into the dough or you'll make it weak or it might snap in two. There we go. And now I'm going to do a stripe at the top and another at the bottom, like so. And this tool here is to kind of do circles, so I'm just getting that out. And you see there, my pink got exposed. That's fun. And there's the cookie ready to be baked. So we have some nice colors peeking through from the white egg wash. On the edge where you have your fingers, if any of the egg wash comes off, you can kind of gently reapply. Just, you need to hold it so it's kind of unavoidable, and it's still goopy because it's raw. All right, so let's pop this in the freezer to set up. Let's pick which side is better. About the same. So this is the dough. It looks a bit different than when we did this. This is the scraps. You see, it gives a different kind of effect. I'm brushing on the egg wash again. We're going to do a slightly different design for you to see. You can, you do whatever you want to do. I'm doing this. You can add a little piece of cookie dough on top like we did with the bunny if you want. All right, now I'm using I'll grab my other one. I like it better. It does a finer kind of line. And now here at the top I'm going to be joining So if you want, you can actually mark it up with a toothpick before the egg wash so you can kind of know where you're going to be carving. I did not do that. I'm just going to wing it. I'm not really good at planning things. I'm more kind of fly by the seat of my pants type of a person. And now here, like so. This gives it more like a Fabergé kind of a look. These sections. All right, so my dough here is a bit too soft, I'm noticing. So you can come in the corners here and remove your extra cookie dough. There. And now we're going to put this in the freezer to set up before baking. Here are the baked cookies. I just want to kind of bring in the other cookie that I did, the initial kind of prototype that got me thinking about this. And so I really like the chocolate with the white on top, but I wanted to see what it would look like with color. By coming closer to the screen here, you can see the crackle here, and then we have a bit of color. Now you can decide what you want to do at this point, if you want to decorate them a little bit more or if you want to just leave them as is. Here is this kind of shape. This one here, if you look, the edges are very jagged. That's because the dough wasn't chilled enough, and so it causes this kind of like crackle like edge. I don't like that. That also happens if you're cutting your cookies without a cookie cutter and you're using a knife. You'll get this jagged edge if your dough is not well chilled. I like this one. So they all turn out differently. You see here, this one, the white isn't very dark. I'm going to try to decorate a couple to see how they turn out. As I mentioned before, this is a little bit of experimentation and I just decided to share it with you. You know, just to kind of inspire you without going in a really clear direction with a project. So I used the same color icing as I did the dough. I had colored the dough pink, teal, and purple. I made those exact colors in icing, and now I'm just kind of playing around with the lines that I had carved into the cookie. You know, there's not any kind of real plan here. I'm just doing some random lines just to embellish that design that I created. And you can do whatever you want to do, obviously, and maybe this will inspire you for something completely different, a different type of a thing. Now the other thing I was contemplating was using a different color egg wash. This is white, just like with the other, you know, on the chocolate cookie. I did not yet do that kind of experimentation. I had this on the brain. I've been watching a lot of clay videos, and they paint the clay and then they carve out these sections, which I absolutely love. I love pottery, and I love looking at those videos. You know, everything can translate into another thing. You see, these made some really cool cookies. Okay, so now I'm just going to go around here. Kind of decide if you want to do dots in here. That's something maybe you want to do. I'm not going to do pink in there because it's that cavity is pretty pink, so let's go with the purple. There we go. And let's do, and there we go. So yeah, it's something a little bit different. It's a different look. Everybody has their own style, and this might feed your creativity for your particular style. I've been wanting to actually decorate this brown cookie. This cookie is old, unedible, but I just want to add some color to it to see kind of how it would look, you know, instead of having it just brown. And I've kind of been holding on to it for this video, and to remind me that I wanted to make this video. I get so many ideas that I don't ever execute just for lack of like my attention span is 2 seconds, and so I get an idea, then I get another idea, and it's whichever one gets lucky that gets executed. Sometimes it doesn't work out and you guys don't see it, but you know, most of the time I do show you guys what I come up with. It's always interesting to try something a little bit different. You don't want to constantly be doing the same thing. I know for me that's like the kiss of death. I need to do different stuff. It's just like how my wires are in my head. If I'm not creating, it's like I'm dying or something. It's been like that my whole life. All right, so this is finished. I gotta tell you, I really like this. I think it's fun. I think it's, you know, something a little bit different from what we always see. Now let me add some dots inside the chocolate line here. See how that looks. So the great thing about this, okay, is that you can actually make the Crackle cookies and everything and just throw them in the freezer and then decorate the day of like Easter as a little activity. And since there's only lines, the icing will dry super fast. I really like this idea. You could have them just crackled without even, you know, doing the carving. Entirely up to you. So what do you guys think? Do you like this idea? And do you like them better decorated or plain? And for the final cookie, one of my all-time favorites, great tasting, aesthetic, and so easy. Here I have 3 colors of cookie dough, and I have been having some trouble getting the cookie dough out of the mold, so I've been dunking it in flour, which has been helping. The thing about coating in flour, sometimes when they bake, they're left with a bit of residue. So depends what you want to do. Sometimes just putting it in the fridge to firm up will help as well. And I'm just making up my bows like that. And you can crank them out pretty quickly once you get your groove going. And it's up to you how many colors you want to do. I'm going to keep it to 3, like so. And now I didn't dunk this time. Let's see. You see, it's giving me some problems. There we go. All right. So that's done. We're going to put those in the freezer. For the next step, I've got my colored dough and the thinnest guides, and I'm rolling out my dough, which I'm going to be freezing. So let me just move the yellow. I'm doing this for every color. Here I've rolled all my colors with the thinnest rolling guides, and I'm going to pop these in the freezer for later. Here I have my frozen cookie dough. It's frozen, and I've got a bench scraper, and I'm just using that to cut some stripes out of my dough. And you can kind of make them in different thicknesses and angle. They don't have to be perfect. Kind of adds to the design. So just run through them, and then once you're done cutting them, back in the freezer. They should be frozen for this to work well. There. All your colors. Wipe your blade in between colors so you don't get like the blue and the yellow. Alright, all cut, back in the freezer now. Here we have our chocolate cookie dough rolled with the thickest guides. I can come in now and cut them. Cut my cookies. Remove the excess. This dough is room temperature and it's nice and soft. That's part of how, like, this needs to be room temperature. Now I can come in and add my stripes that we made earlier and froze. And because they're frozen, they will not get all warped as we push them into the dough. And so I'm just staggering my stripes here on my cookie and breaking the excess so that it doesn't hang off too much the cookie. Just like that. And just get through all of them. I'm putting the stripes actually upside down. The fit is like a bit just better. It's a little bit rounded from being cut, pressed at the top. There. The last blue one. There. Okay, now the next part, you have to push those in. We're using a piece of saran wrap, and it's important that the saran wrap not have any chocolate residue from the previous use. So this one here, I'm flipping the other side, because if you have chocolate there, you're going to dirty your colors with the chocolate dough. And now I'm rolling the cookies, so the soft chocolate base allows the frozen colored stripes to sink in. You see now everything's flat. Now I'm using the saran wrap to cut the cookies, and this gives me a really nice rounded edge. It's like the colors are really embedded in that chocolate cookie. It's not just a surface decoration. It's really like flat. Now we can remove the excess dough. And if you want, you can knead the dough and incorporate the colors. They won't show through the chocolate dough. Now we've got the bows that we made earlier that are frozen, and we can just place those on. I suggest maybe using some water to glue it on, just to make sure that they adhere well. And make sure you don't go too close to the edge, or when they bake they'll melt right off, like they'll hang off. There we go. So we're going to pop them in the freezer to set up, and then we'll be able to bake our cute little chocolate eggs. I hope you enjoyed the video, even though we're revisiting. Well, some of you are new here, and it's all new content to you. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads, and I'll see you next time.